Honorable Custos Rotulorum of the parish of Westmoreland, His Worship, the Mayor of Westmoreland, Mr. Bert Elmore, our Minister of Science, Energy, and Technology, who is doing an excellent job, Minister Favour Williams. The Member of Parliament for this constituency, Central Westmoreland, in which the project is located, Mr. Dwayne Vaz, the Councillor for the Westmoreland Central, for the Petersfield Division, forgive me, Councillor George Wright. Where is George? You weren't leaving, George? Of course not, because you are also the MP caretaker. So you could leave. Mr. Rudolph Utah, the Councillor for the Frome Division, Donette Foster for the Cornwall Mountain Division, and Mr. Murray for the Friendship Division. All other councillors from other divisions. Mr. Devon Thomas is here as well. For the Savalamar Division, which is in this constituency as well. So I believe I've acknowledged everyone from the Parish Council. Mr. Mayor? From other constituencies. Good. Okay. I've met your deputy mayor. Where is the deputy mayor? Let me now turn to acknowledge our new partners, new citizens, new stakeholders who have driven a firm stake in this parish, and who we as Jamaicans, but especially you, the people of Westmoreland, should embrace and treat well. Let me acknowledge Mr. Romain de Rousseau. My French is horrible, but did I get it correct? The Deputy Chief Executive Officer of Neon and a director of the Eight Rivers Electricity Company. That's the correct term? Eight Rivers Energy. Eight Rivers Energy Company. Excellencies of the diplomatic corps. I've never seen so many European ambassadors in one place. Welcome. And I must at this point say how grateful we are for the support of the European Union in Jamaica. They have been great partners with us on many development projects. They have been good partners and support with aid, and they have been very good partners as well in terms of financing development. And I believe that it is a model that should be emulated by all the other countries in the world, all the other unions in the world. I want to also acknowledge other directors and representatives of the Eight Rivers Energy Company who are here. And let me call up this lady. Congratulations. Congratulations. I remember when she visited my office maybe 2 years ago. almost 3 years ago. Very excited introducing the project. And of course, there was always a concern as to whether or not the project would be funded, whether or not the various agencies would work with speed and alacrity to facilitate the project, to ensure it is off the ground. I did give her reassurance, but I didn't promise her that it would be an easy ride. But I was also very happy to learn that she is Jamaican, and that, yes, that she's not only a woman of energy, but she's a woman in energy. And that she has been a very good ambassador for Jamaica, but she has also worked very hard in pulling the project together. And I want to congratulate you. Today is also a very great day for you. Let me acknowledge as well the Deputy Director General of the OUR. And please, Deputy Director, accept the government's commendation of the performance of the OUR as a utility regulator. Emmanuel, he's the star boy of electricity in Jamaica. I think, Emmanuel, that you have listened to what the government is saying. And the government is really interested in having more renewables in its energy mix. But that really depends on what JPS does. And I know, Emmanuel, that the IRP, that is the Integrated Resource Plan, is complete. Minister, that is the case. I've noticed Emmanuel is not answering me definitively. But Minister, is it the case? The last information I got was that the Integrated Resource Plan, which is the stock taking of what we have and the roadmap to how to get to where we want to be in terms of electricity resources, is that it was complete. It was so your work is done, the ministry's work is done, the OUR is reviewing. Right, so it is almost complete. Well, the truth is that the IRP is finished, but you are reviewing it. Yes. So once we know what that says, then we would be in a far better position to make firmer pronouncements on what the composition of our electricity should be. Now, I notice the OUR is very uncomfortable when I make these statements. But I don't have general privileges, but I am the advocate for climate action. So I can only say that Jamaica should lead by example and have far more renewables and generate far less carbon in our atmosphere. The challenge is we have to find an economic way to do it. And that makes you smile. Because ultimately, we want our consumer to have access to cheaper energy, but we also want them to have access to cleaner energy. And that is the trick. That is the dilemma of the 21st century. Let me also acknowledge the heads of agencies who are here, members of the private sector who are here, and also let me acknowledge Eric Busher-Clark. Where is Eric? Why are you always? Come up to the front sometime, man. Mr. Mark Hart is here from... So, it is said that you should lead by example. Last year, I commissioned a state-of-the-art solar array for my office in partnership with an NGO called Solar Head of State, which operates internationally, commissioning solar arrays on prominent government buildings. The installation is of practical value, but it was also symbolic of the transition to clean energy technologies that I believe is imperative if we are to reduce our reliance on fossil fuels and combat climate change. Today, we are here to celebrate the achievements of 8 Rivers Energy Company. The construction of this solar plant mobilized more than 25 Jamaican and international companies for more than 12 months. This is a demonstration of how we can bring in overseas investors, working with local companies, and achieve major things for our economy. More than 300 direct jobs were created at the peak of construction, with priority given to employment from the surrounding communities. And I'm told that this project will have, on average, 30 employees. So this project is a net value add to the community, but it is also adding to permanent employment. I gather as well that persons who worked on the project also got some form of certification from the Heart Trust NTA. And that is also a net value add, because now labor who worked here, who benefited, have certification, which is a step up for the next project that is going to come into your constituency and into your parish. The project, make it fast. I'm foretelling of things to come. The project represents an investment of 65 million US dollars in terms of financing the development of the project and in construction. And it has a capacity to generate up to 37 megawatts of electricity. This is, as was said before, the largest solar farm in the English-speaking Caribbean and the second utility-scale solar farm in the island. The plant will produce an annual average of 82 gigawatt hours of electricity, equivalent to the energy consumption of 78,000 people. To put that into perspective, this plant could run the parish of Hanover in terms of its electricity needs. So, yes. The total amount of electricity generated from solar is now up to 6% of the installed electricity generation capacity island-wide. So that's really small, 6% of our electricity. But we're going to improve that. When this is added to other sources of renewable energy, Jamaica is now generating 17% of its electricity from renewable resources. So that would be wind, solar, and hydro. 17%. The Jamaica National Energy Policy 2009 to 2030 requires that Jamaica realizes its energy resource potential through the development of renewable energy sources and enhances its international competitiveness, energy security, whilst reducing its carbon footprint. The proposed target of 20% of renewables in the energy mix by 2030, in my opinion, was not ambitious enough. So I raised the target. And I know the OUR doesn't like to hear that, but I've raised the target as more of a challenge to the players in the sector. That we should be at least 30% of renewables by 2030. And even that, I think, is putting my hat where I know we can reach it. And then, to give a greater challenge, I've said, let's really try to be at 50% by 20. Let's work for 50%. So this is a signal to investors. It's a signal to the OUR. It's a signal to JPS. It's a signal to our financial market. It is a signal to the citizens of the country that your government is doing everything it can to ensure that we are protecting our own environment by using cleaner energy, but that we are also being good public citizens by ensuring that this global public good called the climate is protected. In 2006, over 94% of our energy mix was petroleum-based. 96%. In 2016, when my administration assumed office, we were at 89.7%. Not a big change, but change. So I have said that we will cut this to 50%. Without government action, without strong political will and advocacy, you will only get marginal change, as we have had from 2006 to 2016. But I believe we have the capacity to do it. And I believe the technology exists. And I believe our capital markets are opening up now. And I believe that our power supply company understands the objective of the government. And I believe that there is now an alignment. So now is the right time for us to make a major shift in our energy mix. LNG is now a major part of our energy mix. And in fact, we're probably going to be generating close to, if not more than 50% of our electricity using LNG. If we can make the shift from petroleum-based to LNG, we can make the shift as well to renewables, whether it is solar or wind. The Eight Rivers Energy Company is the type of joint venture arrangement that we want to see more of in Jamaica. Neon, which owns just over 50% of Eight Rivers Energy Company, is a major global player in the renewable energy industry. It has a presence in Europe, Africa, the Pacific, Latin America, and now a presence in the Caribbean in Jamaica. Neoen operates Europe's most powerful solar farm in France and the world's largest lithium-ion power reserve, that's a battery, in Hornsdale in Australia. And I suspect that's the picture of it there. That's one big battery. This is significant as it speaks to the demonstrated experience and resources that are available to Eight Rivers Energy Company in operating and expanding its solar presence in Jamaica. Very important because, this is clearly well-settled technology that is being used. It is important that this plant will last the 25 years. It is important that this is not technology that will fail. It is important that this is tried, tested, and proven elsewhere, and that Jamaica is not a guinea pig for technology. So we want to see more of these kinds of partnerships where we bring in the right technology, where we are training our people, where our capital markets can be involved, and where Jamaicans are playing a lead role in bringing the project together and eventually having technology transfer. And one day, we will be developing our own indigenous, locally generated, and to be exported solar technology. The interest of Jamaicans in investing in renewable energy was clearly demonstrated when we placed the Wigton wind farm for public offering. I'm not giving you any ideas, but the country is ready to invest in energy. 31,000 Jamaicans bought shares in Wigton. That is the largest single public investment in terms of number of investors buying into such a project. So I'm saying that to reinforce the point that there can be more renewable projects brought to market in Jamaica. So the financing issue is not so much a constraint as it was before. And you have demonstrated that there is the technology, so that should not be a constraint as before. The government is saying, we want this, so there is no political constraint. We just now need to hear from JPS to say we can take on more renewables because of the issue of intermittency, and we need to hear from the OUR to say the price is right. So let me just close on the issue of price. I'm told that it's 8 cents, 8.5 US, so let's just be clear. It's 8.5 US cents per kilowatt hour. And that, I gather, is the lowest in Jamaica now. But just to be clear, this is not from 8 Rivers to the customers. 8 Rivers does not supply electricity directly to your homes. So 8 Rivers sells the electricity to JPS. And it gets into the pool of all the other sources of energy. And so the price that you might get is a blended price. So hopefully having 8 Rivers in the blend will, right, Emmanuel, it will bring down I had to clear my throat at that point. But the last thing I want to talk about in pricing is that, as was said before, I was asked by the Secretary General of the United Nations, Antonio Guterres, to work with President Macron and the Emir of Qatar on this whole business of climate financing and carbon pricing as part of the Climate Action Initiative. A very interesting exercise because, you know, in these matters, you have excellent technocrats who do the work for you, and you just go and stand at the podium and deliver, as we did at the Climate Action Summit at the UN. But these things have always been of interest to me, and environmental concerns are of growing interest to Jamaicans. And it's always good, first of all, to have political interest in environmental issues. It's very good when environmental issues become a part of the political economy. Then it means that governments have to pay attention to them, and these issues get integrated into policy. But like everything else, if you don't have correct information and you're only going on activism, sometimes effort can be misled. And sometimes good intentions can have suboptimal results. So it's always important that we inform our opinions with data, with facts, and that we keep abreast of happenings. So you can be sucked into a wave of discussion without having a truly deep understanding. So before I speak on these issues, even though I have good technical advice, I always do some research myself and ask questions and get briefed so I have a good understanding. So when I'm speaking as an advocate, I'm not just pretending. It is something that I genuinely believe in. So when I was asked by the Secretary General to do it, I didn't take it lightly. I didn't just leave it up. I also got properly briefed. So the issue of climate change is well debated globally. And there is a great deal of politics of climate change as well. And there are some who believe that there is no such thing. And there are those who believe that it is the Armageddon that is being predicted. The truth, obviously, is somewhere in between the extremes, and we have to search to find it. What we know, however, is that the Earth and its atmosphere, its climate, is warming. It's getting hotter each year. And it's getting hotter because the scientists have agreed that there are certain gases that have a greenhouse effect, meaning it prevents heat leaving the Earth from escaping into space. And there are some gases that are naturally generated. Methane, for example, is a greenhouse gas, and it happens when things die and deteriorate, and it's part of the natural process. But there are some gases which are highly driven by human activity. One such would be carbon dioxide. That particularly is released from using petroleum-based and including LNG and other forms of energy. And the increase of that in the atmosphere is contributing to the warming of the Earth. That warming of the Earth is easily demonstrated by exactly where we are now. We are in a tent. It's getting hotter, but the heat cannot. And you're feeling really hot, but not miserable. So the point I'm making, this is a perfect demonstration of what it is. This causes changes in, for example, areas that are very cold. Now becoming warmer, glaciers are melting, and areas that are already hot will become hotter. There are those who have said that the increasing heat in the ocean will cause more hurricanes to form and greater intensities. And we are seeing greater variability in our own weather patterns here. So, from my perspective, we are not going to get involved in the politics of climate change. We know from what we are living that there are changes happening in our climate which are leading to disasters. And these disasters obviously have a human impact, a dislocating and devastating human impact, but it also has a fiscal impact, meaning it has an impact on the ability of the country to finance recovery. So we have to do our part in figuring out ways, how do we finance after a weather event that creates a disaster, and how do we finance before a weather event that is likely to create a disaster? So, in other words, how do we finance to adapt our infrastructure to the effects of climate change, and how do we finance to be resilient after a weather event? And that is the work that I've been asked to do along with President Macron. And we have come up with excellent ideas as to how this can be done. And we will be marketing this all around the world. We have started, and countries are making greater pledges about increasing their work. Recently, I was in the United States. I visited the White House. I met with Vice President Pence, and we had a very good conversation about how Jamaica and the United States can work closer in ensuring that there is capacity for disaster recovery and resilience. So there is a wide scope of work to be done. And to reassure Jamaicans who are always of the view that their government is not doing what it is supposed to be doing, that is an absolute myth. That this government of Jamaica has taken more environmentally protective steps than any other government in Jamaica. But we act in deliberate ways. We act in instrumental ways. We are not going to be swept by loud voices. We are not going to be swept and swayed by fads and favors. No. We will do our work. We will do our research. We will make our decisions empirically. We will study the data. And when we make the decisions, they are solid decisions which will ensure that Jamaica will move from poverty to prosperity. So, I want to, again, congratulate the Eight Rivers Energy Company to remind JPS that we need to be at 50%, and the price of energy needs to come down lower, and to encourage the OUR to speed up its review of the integrated resource plan and to ensure that we can move towards a greater renewable energy mix in our overall energy. And ladies and gentlemen, you have been a great audience. You have really followed me through my long speech. You have borne with me, and I'm so grateful. I'm happy to be with you. God bless you.